The airport was buzzing with the usual chaos of rolling suitcases, tired travelers, and boarding announcements echoing through the terminal. Among the crowd, a tall man in an expensive suit moved quickly through the first-class lane, his jaw tight, his eyes hidden behind dark sunglasses. His name was Richard Caldwell, one of the most powerful businessmen in the country, known for closing million-dollar deals without blinking. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of small moments to change lives, please stay with us and watch this story till the end. If there is any mistake or shortcoming in our story, please kindly forgive us and support us with your love, patience, and encouragement. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness True Stories, and tell us in the comments where in the world you are watching from. Your support means everything to us. But today he was not in a boardroom. He was holding the small hand of his 8-year-old son, Noah, who was deaf from birth and had been growing more anxious by the minute. Richard had raised Noah mostly through nannies and tutors, telling himself that providing the best money could buy was enough. He had never truly learned sign language. He could manage a few basic signs, but nothing more. Noah could read lips to some extent, but in the crowded, noisy airport, it was nearly impossible for him. The boy's eyes darted around the terminal, overwhelmed and frightened by the movement and commotion. He could feel, but not fully understand. Richard squeezed his hand, trying to reassure him, but Noah pulled away and pressed himself against the wall, his little chest heaving. Once they boarded the plane and settled into their seats, Noah started crying, not quietly. He sobbed with his whole body, tears streaming down his face, his hands flapping in distress, making sounds that turned every head in the cabin. Richard leaned close, trying to sign the few words he knew, but Noah shook his head furiously, clearly not understanding or not comforted. The flight attendants approached with kind smiles and offered snacks and toys, but nothing worked. Richard felt something he rarely felt in life, completely helpless. He was a man who could buy anything, fix anything, control any room he walked into, and yet he could not reach his own son sitting right beside him. Passengers were shifting uncomfortably. Some were whispering. A woman 3 rows back sighed loudly. Richard's face burned with embarrassment, and beneath that, a deep and quiet shame he had been avoiding for years. Then, from across the aisle, a small voice said, "Daddy, can I go talk to him?" Richard looked up. A little girl, no older than 7, with 2 braids and bright, curious eyes, was already unbuckling her seatbelt. Her father nodded and watched her carefully. The little girl walked over to Noah and crouched down to his eye level. Then slowly and clearly she began to sign. Her small hands moved with surprising fluency, forming words and shapes that Noah immediately recognized. Noah's crying slowed. He blinked, staring at her hands. She signed again, smiling gently, and this time Noah wiped his tears and signed back. Within moments, the 2 children were having a full conversation in sign language, their hands dancing through the air between them, both of them occasionally giggling. The entire cabin seemed to exhale. Richard watched in stunned silence, his throat tight. He turned to the girl's father across the aisle, who smiled quietly and said, "Her best friend from school is deaf. She has been learning sign language for 2 years so they could talk properly. She insisted on it." Richard could not speak for a moment. He looked back at Noah, who was now laughing, showing the girl something on his small tablet. Completely transformed from the terrified child of minutes ago, something cracked open inside Richard's chest. He thought about every business trip he had taken while Noah was at home with a tutor. He thought about every dinner spent on a phone call, every bedtime skipped for a late meeting. He thought about how he had told himself that money was love, that providing was the same as being present. But this 7-year-old girl had done in 30 seconds what he had failed to do in 8 years. She had simply shown up, learned his son's language, and looked him in the eye. By the time the plane landed, Noah had fallen asleep against the little girl's shoulder, peaceful and calm. Richard sat quietly, watching his son sleep, and made a decision. The next morning, he enrolled in a full sign language course. He cancelled 3 business trips that month. He started sitting beside Noah at breakfast, not across from him with a phone in hand. It was slow and awkward at first. His signs were clumsy, Noah laughed at his mistakes, and Richard laughed too, and somehow that laughter became the bridge they had never had. Months later, Richard gave a speech at a charity gala for deaf children's education. He did not talk about his fortune or his company. He talked about a little girl on a plane who reminded a very rich and very foolish man that the most valuable thing you can give someone you love is the effort to understand them. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Kindness True. Stories for more beautiful and heartwarming stories just like this one. Your support means the world to us. Bean.